Hi, everyone. Welcome to my home, the Octagon House, where I'm practicing social distancing and self isolation and all those stay at home order things like everybody else. But we really appreciate you tuning in to this first ever Q&A session. And we really appreciate all the questions you sent in. Obviously, people thought about it a lot. And we really enjoyed reading through them all and, of course, doing the research necessary to give you the most accurate information we can. And because we had so many, there's no way we're going to be able to get through them all during this one session. That just means, good news, we're going to be doing more, and there'll be actually other Capon hosts that you get to meet and greet with you and spend this time answering some of your questions. So you get to look forward to that. But we decided to keep the format pretty straightforward. We're going to start off with the big questions. There were about 5 of those that we thought we could, knock off right away. 5 that are in the kind of the curious, behind the scenes kind of thing. There are 5 that are going to be kind of lightning round, just real quick, boom. And then I'm going to throw in some bonus material at the end of some of the personal favorites that people ask me about Capon. So with that being said, let's get started. I got the questions right here. All right, the first one right off the bat. A number of people asked this in various different ways, but we knew what they all meant. And that is, will you still be able to open Memorial Day weekend as planned? That is the big question, isn't it? And to be honest, it's going to be tough at this point in time. The first thing, of course, is that we're all in the state of West Virginia is under a stay-at-home order. And besides that, Hampshire County itself is under a public restrictive order. And these are in effect at the end of the month, at least, and we'll know, therefore, next week or so, whether these are going to be lifted, whether they're going to be less restrictive, or whether they're going to be extended later into the next month and beyond. So we don't know yet on that part. The other thing, of course, is we're not going to open it until we know we have the safety measures in place to take care of the health and well-being of all our guests and all our coworkers. So we're working on protocols and strategies to be able to make sure that everyone can stay safe, which is obviously very important. And with all those two things being met, it's still going to take us about a month to get through all our regular preparations that we normally do to start the season. So that's how we're marking out when we're going to be able to open. The second question. We're so looking forward to our time at Capon, but wondering, how can you adequately do the social distancing considering the way you've done the meals and activities and some of the main house shared bathrooms, for example? And yes, this is a major concern for all of us. And we have run through a whole number of scenarios and strategies, and knowing that adjustments are going to have to be made. But until we know how this plays out, we can't plan for specific or have specific answers to those until we know what's going to be required of us. But that being said, we do want you to know, of course, that we're going to have your back. We're not going to do anything that's make anyone feel uncomfortable or put them in a position where it's going to be unsafe. But we are aware that some changes are going to have to be made, and we're going to do those in the most Capon-like way we can moving forward. Question number 3. This comes from Anne, and we heard this from a number of guests, though, because they're wondering about the whole rebooking process. Say we can't open and they have to move their dates and reschedule. How does that going to work? And do they need to pay now ahead of time in order to stay organized? Because her point was that we're going to be back, so we're happy to pay if you need us to. So the first thing I'll say is we've had to do this once already. We've had to shuffle the early people in May to later, and so we know we can do it. So it's not as crazy as we thought. However, we know that as we go later in the season, the summer months are really busy, and there is very limited space of how we're going to have to reshuffle people. So what we're kind of saying right now is because there were no deposits, no cancellation fees, so we're not ever going to ask any money up front, that you don't have to worry about any of your reservations at this point. If we do get a new date and we have to reshuffle, like the rest of the world, we're just going to have to play by ear and make it happen the best we can. We do understand that a number of our guests are at a very high health risk and have serious concerns about being able to come anytime, no matter what we did in our 2020 season, and we fully understand that. If you need to cancel reservations and reschedule those for 2021, we're happy to do that for you, which we've already done for some guests. The next question is kind of getting to the heart of the matter, and This was expressed by half a dozen people. We think Andy's kind of said it the best. And he writes, in the event that, God forbid, Capon is not able to open this season due to COVID-19, what does that mean for the future viability of the business? Yes. All right. This is the ultimate worst case scenario. Every business has to at least address this and think about it and plan for it. We're not in a position of thinking that we have to go there yet, but it is a serious concern. And we're doing our best to stay educated on what we can do if that scenario happens. What are some backup plans? We're very well placed within the industry and network as far as getting the information we need. We're getting the government assistance that we need to be able to take care of things. And we think where we have the most durability to be able to weather this storm is because of the huge amount of people that care so much about Capon. Starting, of course, with our own family, the third and fourth generation who are committed to the future of Capon. Our legacy coworkers, you think about their commitment to do the work that needs to get done to make sure operations happen. And, the unboundless generosity that we have from our guests, people like you who care about what happens here and have expressed, willingness to help us in any way. We were so thankful that we set up the guest council last year who can be in a position to help us organize those kind of things when we get to that. Which leads to the next question, because guests want to say that, therefore, what can we do to help Capon right now? And your coworkers who are now, in need of work and pay and all that. And, the first thing I want to say on behalf of the whole family is, first, thanks for thinking about that and being concerned about that. We know everybody is struggling. It's not just us, but for you to be concerned and thinking about what you can do to help, we really appreciate it. And we'll let you know when the time comes. There's nothing right now. We have qualified and received, thanks to the help from our local Cape Valley Bank, the PPP loan. So we're all set as far as payroll for the next couple of months, which is a huge help to us. So let's shift gears a little bit now and go into more the curiosity questions. And somebody just kind of said, hey, I want to get more Capon stuff. How can I buy Capon stuff during the off season? And we already addressed this to some degree with our spa kits, which have been a huge hit, where Alicia and Sarah up the spa put together these wonderful packages for people. And people have bought them for themselves. They've given them as gifts. And because of that, Alicia and Sarah now say if there's individual items that you would also like to purchase outside the kits, just contact the spa. They can take care of that. And so what was inspired from that is to create these Mother's Day kits, which we'll be putting together over the next week or so. And so stay tuned. You'll be getting an email about that, which will combine some spa stuff and store stuff. So it'll be a way for you to get some of the Capon store. And because we have so much interest, yes, we are long-term going to figure out a way how to get some of these store items, the shirts, the mugs, that sort of thing, that you will be able to purchase. So stay tuned. More research on that coming. Bill wanted to know about the status of some of the projects, because in the spring mailing you received, list all these things we were going to do to kind of, freshen up Capon a little bit. And one of them was specifically for the spring house. Now, we're not going to do anything for the structure itself, but because it's the 100th anniversary of the first building being built right there to protect the spring, we wanted to do some enhancements. So specifically the entryway, the door, the floor when you go in, the ceiling, the lighting, even the glass enclosure, we're going to dress up a little bit and make it more attractive and highlight this very special part of Capon. And we're adding an information board, which we've never had before. That'll be outside permanently there. So even if you're not there for a spring tour, you can brush up on your Capon water history. Speaking of which, Freddie wanted me to share that original story about the first European to come through Capon Springs. His name was Henry Fry. The year was 1765. He was hunting bear up on the mountain. He would rock, came down, he was thirsty, tried the water, it was delicious. The next summer he brought his wife, who was ill at the time, Fanny. She was healed of all her isms, and that's where the word spread that this is a curative property. But of course, you go back further in history, we all know that the word Capon is a much anglicized Native American word that means medicine waters, healing waters. So it's been a place of healing before the European settlers came through. Linda asked us a question about the presidents, though. What was there ever a U.S. president that stayed there? Everybody would like to say George Washington slept here or whatnot. No, we didn't have any of that, but we did have Franklin Pierce, the unknown nobody from New Hampshire, one time president. Although he was famous at Capon Springs because he was there on that warm day in June, 1851, before he was president, when they dedicated the Mountain House and the Bath Pavilion across the street from it. He came back later in the mid-1850s as president, and at that time he actually brought his war secretary, who later became the president of the Confederacy, none other than Jefferson Davis. The only other person president-wise was Woodrow Wilson, was at Capon Springs when he was president of Princeton. There was some educational conferences in the early 1900s. He was never there while he was president that we know of. But we do have two more kind of side connection presidents. Walter Mondale, after he was vice president and retired, he came to Capon Springs with his family reunion. And John Eisenhower, son of Dwight D. Eisenhower, came on vacation a couple times as well. Now, this is one of my favorites. This one comes from Doug, and a lot of people have asked this, for a long time. How did that bench get up at Eagle Rock? And I always like to joke, oh, my back, oh, so sore still. That's why I have to go in the pool because it took 3 hours to carry that thing up there. All right, so the real story, I went back to some of our early maintenance supervisors who were involved in the project, and that would be Denny Dunlap and Michael Lindelberg. And they recalled very clearly that they had to create molds from scratch, and there were 3 pieces that were needed, 2 legs and the top bench. And Jenny Burrell was the one who designed the Capon Springs lettering that was actually engraved into the bench. And in 1980, so 40 years ago, they strapped it to the back of a tractor and hauled that thing up to Eagle Rock, and it's been there ever since. Now, those of you who have never been up to see that bench and still want to get an idea what that bench was like, is actually its twin, which is down toward the fish pond area, actually in the new Frisbee golf area, where you can sit and rest on the same style bench. And people have enjoyed that too. All right, now let's get to the golf course. A lot of people's favorite subject. And Michael wanted to know about its origins and its history. Who designed it, when it was built, and that sort of thing. So going into our history book, I found out that Norman Maxwell was the architect. He was a friend of Lou Austin's. They played golf together at Penn National Club in Philadelphia. And he always wanted to design a golf course, and Lou Austin had him come down and design the whole thing. Now, it was actually Hugh Murray, who was a protege of Robert Trent Jones, who did the actual supervision of the construction. And the years for that was 1934 to 1936. I also found out that the first complimentary ginger ale was offered on the course in 1940, and that was made with Capon water back in the day. The prep course itself was completed in 1954, and the major renovations that happened on the golf course came in the 1960s. So, curious fact, Frank wanted to know how many holes in one have ever been experienced at Capon Springs. Well, people look back in the records, and they go back to 1947, and there have been a total of 119 aces on Capon's course. And the breakdown is as follows. Hole number 2 have been 45, hole number 4 has been 61, and believe it or not, on easy bogey, hole number 8, there have been 13 aces. All right, let's get into the lightning round. We have 5 questions here. We're starting with Sue's question about what color is the Capon green? She wants to match it to a porch swing that she is painting. And the official brand is, and you write this down, is an exterior paint, cedar green, industrial enamel from Sherwin-Williams. So I'll read that again. Exterior paint, cedar green, industrial enamel from Sherwin-Williams. Max wants to know what kind of fish do we stock in the pond every year? And that would be rainbow trout. 100 of those things, 8 to 14 inches, go in every spring. But when you're in there fishing, you'll see schools of bass and carp and crappie and perch, bluegill, and even occasional catfish. The next one's about how many dozen eggs does Capon Springs typically use in a season? Well, if you figure there's about 800 eggs a day, then over a course of an entire season, that's approximately 13,333 dozen eggs consumed at Capon Springs. All right, the next one is, who's the guest who has come the longest and how many years has that been? Well, we have so many guests that go back to the 40s and 50s when some of the original families, and some of them still have 50 and 60-year streaks where they haven't missed a single trip to Capon Springs. A lot of them make multiple trips in the same year. We do know there's at least one person who celebrated every single one of his birthdays at Capon Springs, and that's now over 50 of them. Attaboy, Andy. And the last one, how many Capon romances have resulted in marriages? Well, we can't be 100% certain about this, but we put our heads together and came up with at least 12 that we know about in the last 40 some years, and 4 more just from our own family. And I can speak from personal experience because that's how I met my wife, Betsy. I was just doing my job, being friendly, taking care of all the guests, and we made a connection 20 years later. Now we're enjoying the Octagon House in isolation. It's working. All right, I promise now at the very end to give you some of the Capon favorites that people have asked me. And some of the things are like, what's your favorite meal? And of course, I have to say they're all great, but you have to pick one. And so I'd have to say Monday chicken on the hill. And part of me is kind of ironic because the one evening I'm supposed to have some time off is Monday night. Maybe that's why the chicken tastes so special when I do have it. Oh, anyway, how about your favorite dessert? Ooh, another toughie because those are all good as well. But I have to go with a classic here, apple crisp, especially because you can get it twice a week if you're there for the whole week, right? The third one, what's your favorite Capon summer week? Well, that's an easy one. Yours, of course. Now, this is a tough one. Your favorite thing to do as a group activity. And this one's evolved over the years. And I think what's happened now, because with all this isolation, and I think about the fond memories I have of being on people's porches and enjoying porch visiting time. And what's been afforded with these Zoom meetings is that we've been able to continue that, having these happy hours with different Capon guests. Some have hosted their own, some that I've hosted, but it's been a great time to stay connected and share some of those memories, especially when you can put a Zoom background of a Capon porch. That's the trick. And the last question is, what's your favorite thing to do at Capon? And I think I will actually not tell you, I think I'll show you. So with the power and magic of these Zoom things, I'm going to take you to my favorite place at Capon, which I think some of you can guess. That's right, the Capon pool. Oh, I miss those morning dips. So as we all dream about being back at Capon, enjoying the magic of the Capon experience, think about your place, and hopefully you have a photograph and can take yourself there in your mind's eye. Well, that concludes our question and answers. As I say, we didn't get to all of them, but stay tuned for more coming down the road. And in the meantime, be safe, stay well, take care of each other. And as a wise man once said, thank you. That is all.